Hello students, welcome back to the second part of the poem Why I Like Hospital by Tony Hoagland. I like the long prairie of the waiting, the forced intimacy of the self with the self. Each sick person standing in the middle of a field, like a tree wondering what happened to the forest. Look at the first line of the fifth stanza. The poet uses an interesting metaphor. He uses the word long prairie. Prairie is a French word for meadow. It means a large grassland. And he's comparing that to the waiting one has to undergo in order to reach a diagnosis, or one in order to reach one's final fate, or the entire process of treatment. And it is entailed with a lot of suffering, physical as well as psychological. So he covers all those aspects of waiting by using a simple metaphor such as prairie. The forced intimacy of the self with the self. Now we all have two selves. One is the outer self that we project outward, with which we communicate, we socialize with our friends or with our colleagues, or we at a large socialize with the world outside. And we also have an inner self that is somewhere hidden, that we rarely encounter or have a conversation with our inner self because we are so caught up, because we are so engaged with the outer self and the act of socializing and mixing with people around us. But when one is diagnosed with a terminal illness, one finds oneself going through this process all alone. One finds or wonders that what happened suddenly. Here we have also another very interesting, wonderful nature simile where a sick person is compared to a tree which is somehow present in the middle of a field, wondering what happened to the forest. It symbolizes the isolating, singular experience of the patient. When one goes through such a treatment or such a phase, one is alone. Despite the truest intentions of his loved ones, they cannot step into his shoes. They cannot share the suffering. They cannot share the anxiety. It is his experience and his journey alone. And once I saw a man, he says, the poet talks about one incident, and there is an emphasis on once because he feels that this occurrence, this incident that he witnessed, it is rare. I saw a man in a lime green dressing gown, hunched forward in a chair, so the man was bent forward in a chair. A man who was not yelling at the doctors. Patients often, when they are told about a terminal illness or informed about a terminal illness, they would yell at the doctors. Why do they do that? Because they are in a state of denial. They do not want to accept that this has happened to them. Or pretending to be strong. Others still hold on to the pretensions. They try and appear to be strong. Maybe from within they are crumbling, yet they put up a show of strength. Or making a murmured call to his wife. So a person who is not expecting to be saved by one of the loved ones and calling and desperately asking for some kind of support or hoping that there will be some support. But one sobbing without shame, pumping it all out from the bottom of the self, the overflowing bulge of helplessness and rage. A man no longer expecting to be saved, but he has seen someone who was sobbing without shame, who was crying out loud without any shame or inhibition. He was pumping out from the bottom of his self all sorts of helplessness and rage that was overflowing in his system. Bilge is a part of ship that collects dirty water. Here it has been used again as a metaphor, as if a container within that was holding his helplessness and rage, it is coming out, it is overflowing and dripping down his cheeks in the form of tears. A man no longer expecting to be saved. So he has accepted his fate. He has accepted what has come his way. He realizes the gravity of this diagnosis and he no longer expects to be saved by anything. Staying in denial would not save him. Pretending to be strong will not save him. No loved one, despite their loyalty, their truest intentions, cannot step into his shoes and cannot take away his suffering, his anxiety. So he is no longer expecting to be saved. Now, the poet shows this almost while the poet narrates this incident, we see that there is a tone of admiration in his voice. He does not present the sobbing as a form of weakness, but he presents it as an act of bravery. He has given up all sorts of pretensions and he is presenting his true self. He is owning his true emotions. But if you looked, you could see. So he says that the initial reaction is when we see a man crying or sobbing, that it is a sign of weakness. But the poet urges his readers to look closely. You could see that he was holding his own hand in sympathy. If one looked closely, one would understand that the man was holding his own hand in sympathy. He has realized that through this journey, he has only himself. So he is holding his own hand in sympathy, listening to every single word because he has only himself by his side. If you like this explanation, if you like my work, kindly like, share and subscribe to my channel. And there is one important note that I would like to share with you all at the end of the video. It is a small additional information about the poet. It is about his poetic process. Tony Hoagland talks about in one of his essays about negative capability. Please note that this is very different from the poet Keats's negative capability. Here Tony Hoagland talks about how to talk mean and influence people. He says that the poets should stop trying to be nice and they should try to use meanness judiciously so that they can influence people. They can take out their readers from a safe space and can involve them actively in the reading process. I found this information quite fascinating, and I would also like to read a small section from Tony Hoagland's interview with Miriam Sagan in 2003, where he says he doesn't want poetry to be a safe living room, lazy boy, museum, tea party experience. He wants to show that poetry is about open heart surgery, being woken up or taken somewhere unexpected and dangerous. The poem Why I Like the Hospital also takes us or introduces us to unexpected themes, presents us a scene which we are perhaps not prepared to experience which we do not generally associate or think with hospitals. I found this fascinating, so I thought that I should share it with my students. If you like this and if you want to know more such interesting literature tidbits, stay tuned to my channel. Thank you.